So anyways, let's take a gander at that gorgeous dial glass there. That's the money shot. Hey guys, welcome to the start of a new project. If you've been following along on my trials and tribulations, you may have seen that all those predictors I was working on were taken back to their owner, and a few more sets dropped off, like we see here. Well, while we were doing musical chairs and taking sets out and bringing sets in, I also brought this in, which is a Stromberg Carlson, I think it's a TS-16, that I picked up at the Early Television Foundation Museum swap meet in May of 2023. We are now in early September, and it's been out in the garage all this time. It's nice to finally get it in. Now, even with two guys who are used to moving heavy stuff around, it was still a bit too much for us to handle, so we took the chassis and the turntable out in the garage. Just this empty cabinet by itself is a beast. Now that it's down here, I was able to put some slides on it, and I'm on some industrial carpeting, so now I can maneuver it around. So, to get started, a few things. I did talk about this set a bit when I first got it, and even when I was bidding on it, there was a tag right on the CRT that said it was dead. Now, when I got it back, I rejuvenated it a bit and squeezed some life out of it. But since then, I have secured a good 16 AP4, so that is no longer an issue with this project, so full steam ahead. As I've been bringing these new sets down, and just in general when I start working on projects, I like to do a few things. One, of course, is do some triage, look over it, test the picture tube, look for any real significant issues that may make me pause about diving into the project, like maybe there's a part I can't get that I would need. But I don't believe that's the case with this set, so what I like to do next is clean it up a bit. Because I like to do both the electrical restoration. Sure, it's awesome to get a set working, but sets like this, I want to show this off. So I want to clean it up a bit and kind of assess any cabinetry repairs I might need to make. Now, it seems pretty solid. It's very well made. Very chunky wood. Mahogany veneer. Without even cleaning it, I can tell obviously there's scuffs, there's some loss. But I wouldn't dream about stripping this down and refinishing it. It's nowhere near at that stage. So, my standard practice, as do many other restorers, is to clean it with Gojo pumice-free hand cleaner. Then I like to use some Howard's Restorer finish, or you could wipe on a little stain, or you could just go right to the next step, which is to put some type of preservative furniture polish kind of thing. I would strongly recommend you avoid anything like Pludge. It has silicone oil in it, because that will seep down into the wood, and if someone ever did want to refinish it, it's going to make their lives very difficult because it repels lacquer and other finishes. So I will be using Oz, which is just paraffin wax and probably lanolin or some other oils or something like that. So I want to check out these decals. They're rather subdued. I actually didn't even notice them when I was first checking out this set. That one is pretty well obliterated. I can just see there was a T, and maybe it was tone. Or no, that would have been off in tone. So, picture dial lights, off, tone, volume, and this is function. So what would this be? Oh, tuner. Whoa, a little slow tonight. That would be how you tune the channels in. And this is also a radio, continuous tuner. So, with the chassis out, we just have empty cabinet. And when you have a door on a set, that gives you a great opportunity to see this is what it would have looked like If it was, if the whole thing had been protected from the environment. Obviously, there's a bit of a color difference between this and this. This is from UV damage and sun and weather and whatnot. But this is what it would have looked like originally. So what I want to do right now, aside from cleaning it with Gojo, is take a look at the phonograph, because I just took that out and I brought it down to the basement. The main chassis is still out in the garage. Now, I don't do much with phonographs, and when I started getting the few combo sets I have, I was very surprised to see how phonographs are typically hooked up in these devices. I would often see people post in forums when people get a combo set, oh, the turntable's been replaced with a Garrett, this, that, or the other, or web core changer, whatever. And it's always seemed odd to me until I actually got my hands on some of these and realized that the phonographs are completely isolated from the rest of the device. They just lift right out. They're not even screwed in typically. And they have their own power cords and everything. So it's trivial to swap them out, to replace them, to remove them for servicing. It's completely self-contained, and you can plug this into the wall on its own. It's just a motor that runs off 120 volts AC, and that's it. And a cartridge that feeds into the audio circuitry. Nothing else. So it's not wired into the power supply of the TV or anything like that. Whether this is the original or not, I do not know. I'll have to do a little more research. There's not a whole lot of info about this model. It's out there. Probably just a 78 RPM. It's pretty dirty. Looks like this is plastic. I don't think it's celluloid or anything super exotic. It should look a lot nicer. Cleaned and polished up. There's the cartridge, which I don't doubt is some type of crystal thing that's probably no good anymore. Well, actually, there's not even a needle in there. I'm not quite sure what I'm looking at. Oh, this is the kind that can rotate, I think. So it looks like there's a needle there and a needle there. Am I looking at this wrong? Yeah, because I can see a little thing sticking down there. But it sure doesn't seem like it wants to move. I can also see it's been monkeyed with. It's been wire cut, spliced. Yeah, looks a little ugly. But see, that's the good thing. This might not even be the original platter. These are easy to swap out with something else, and also easy to get serviced if I so chose to. So I don't work on these. I don't carry belts and motors and whatever else cartridges this might need, but there are people that do, so I could just send this out to somebody. There's a lot going on, more than I've seen on others. There's a whole lot going on here. So maybe this is a 45 and a 78? Or something. It's got other 78s where it's just basically a motor and a belt and a turntable, and that's it. For sure, this must have like auto play, auto stop. Maybe even it's a changer. I don't know. I'm not so good with mechanical stuff, but I see a lot of levers and springs and gears and whatnot. I don't see a name, but I can see it's an SC148025. I don't know if it's a model or a serial number or what that is. I'm sure some of you guys know exactly what this is. Oh, I see. It's probably for Stromberg Carlson. Unfortunately, this is so worn off. All I can see is there's a slow stop. Reject. On, off. And that's it. Anyways, so I'm going to get to be cleaning this stuff up. And eventually muscle down the chassis, and we'll take a closer look at that. That's better. About 10 minutes of work. Windex to clean the frame. Good old nose #2 on the plastic parts. Microfiber cloth all around. It may seem silly to do this, but psychologically it helps me, because the nicer it looks, the more energy or more excited I am about continuing to work and getting the whole thing functioning. And yeah, the cartridge does have 2 needles, and it was just really frozen up. I flipped it around to one position. It has a low and a high, maybe long playing and standard 78, something like that. And it is a changer mechanism, so all that is cool. And to put it into the cabinet, it just sits in there. There are little cutouts, and there are springs, I believe, on the bottom of this. Yeah, and you just plop it down. So it just goes into this drawer, and that's it. I cut off the power cord because it was rotting. This other thin cable is RCA. It has an RCA jack on the end. I'm sure I'll be replacing all of that. Something like that. And it just closes up. So now I'm going to get out the Gojo and start working on the main cabinet. These are the products I'm talking about. Gojo to clean, Howard's to give a little bit of color, hide some scratches, and then cream polish to protect it, make it look nice. So we're going to start out with Gojo. And I just use paper towels. Get some on there. Work it in. Let it sit for a little while. And so I already crud coming off it. As it sits, it dissolves whatever it encounters, ideally. Been doing this treatment on all wood cabinets for a while now. All this works well on Bakelite too. Even just at this stage, when you get some oil or moisture on it, it gets shiny, and I already cleaned it a bit, so this gives you a real good sense of what it's going to look like in the end. What I'm more curious about is down lower, where there's some very visible scratches. What can we do with those? Now these are really deep gouges, so those aren't going to come out with some cleaning. But this is just a very light surface scuff, as are some of these. So some of this should basically disappear as we go. One thing we don't have on this is a bunch of white specks. Like, this seems to be so common. So that's basically what it'll look like. These 2 horizontal scratches, and they're not going away. Vertical is always better than, or with the grain, I should say. Scratches with the grain are always better than against the grain. These are going against the grain. So if you try to put filler in or anything, it's going to be very noticeable that they're going that way. So you just live with it. It's the easiest thing to do, in my recommendation. Alright, I had pretty high hopes for this one. I saw that's why I bid on it in the first place. Because what it doesn't have, and what you don't want to see, is veneer loss. There are chunks of it gone. major separation, bubbling, dirt, scratches, we can deal with that. Alright, the upper section should be ready to start coming off. Not too horrible. As long as it keeps coming away dirty, I'm going to keep going. Might as well start getting over here too. See if we make these decals pop a little. Alright, that's enough of that. Let's move on to Howard's. Which is pigment and some, I don't know, oils, I guess. A solvent, I suppose, too. Smells real nice. Wipe it on, let it sit a little while, wipe off the excess. Okay, finished up with the Howards. And as it sits on the surface, it'll start to dry out and get splotchy looking. That's when you want to switch over to wiping off the excess. And when you're done with this, it's going to look a little dull. And that's why you want to finish it off with something. Howard's Feeding Wax, which is beeswax and orange oil, is a real nice choice. Those beeswax is a little sticky-ish. It's a softer wax than, say, carnauba. But it's really mellow looking. It smells real nice. But instead I'm going to go with Oz Cream Polish, which is paraffin wax and castor oil, basically. It's not quite as mellow looking as the beeswax, but it shows fingerprints less. A little bit more durable, I think. Always put it on a cloth first. Don't just put any of these products directly on your cabinet, and then just work it in and then buff it out. It doesn't smell so nice. Chemically smelling. Maybe that's the castor oil, I don't know. Never had the pleasure of having castor oil, so I don't really know what it smells like. It's not like a car wax where you let it dry and then buff it out. Just basically as soon as you're done putting it on, start going back to where you started and buff it out. Here's a little bit closer look for you. A nice mellow shine to it. In my mind, the real goal here is to not do anything that's irreversible and preserve and protect. And of course make it look nice. But nothing I did had any effect whatsoever on the original finish, and cleaning it and putting on new wax and oil will help preserve the original finish. So yeah, those decals are in really remarkably good condition. My inclination is to just say, oh well, we just doesn't say tuning. I can live with that. It's pretty obvious what that dial does. Alright, now that we have a nice clean cabinet, I'm even more enthusiastic about moving forward with this project. So I just muscled down the chassis, which is definitely the biggest and maybe the heaviest I've ever worked with. I took out the 16-inch CRT out in the garage to shave about 10 pounds off of it, but it is still really unwieldy, not just because it's large, not just because it's heavy, but there's really no good place to grab it because there's just sharp metal edges all around the perimeter. So let us take a closer look. So starting from the front, we have this really cool glass dial that I have been super paranoid about getting broken. Hopefully it is easy to remove, and I will put it somewhere in a shoebox with some padding way far away from any of this stuff until the project is done. But that's what adds to some of this complexity. Is it is not only a TV, it's an AM and FM radio. So here we have a ganged variable capacitor that'll be for the AM and maybe the FM as well. And it says continuous tuning, but you know what? I was sure this had an induct tuner in it. The early Stromberg Carlsons, some of them were clones of Dumont, or maybe they just used Dumont chassis and they had the roller inductor type continuous tuners. But no, this is more like the Stromberg Carlson TC-10 I've worked on that has movable slugs on a rack. So there's a gear that translates the rotary motion into this bar with teeth into vertical motion, and attached to that plate are coil slugs on both sides. So when you tune this, the whole deck moves up and down. Alright. That's alright. I was hoping for an duck tuner, but that's okay. This one works as well. And then we have the TVIF. It may look odd to see it angling this way, but that's because of the picture tube. Metal cone, high voltage, they want to keep this area devoid of anything. So that's why we have these tubes going this way and then this way. And then under here, this huge box is for the high voltage. It's on a hinge. Or does this, oh, this probably lifts up. Wasn't sure if the top was hinged or this back. Take a couple screws off and this flips up. So why is it so huge? I think there's a voltage doubler in here. Yeah, the CRT is a bit larger, but a 16-inch CRT doesn't run on a whole lot more voltage than a 12 or a 10. So you wouldn't normally need anything really all that elaborate, but it's Stromberg Carlson, it's high-end, so they probably have a bit more elaborate filtering in here, and maybe instead of just going straight out the flyback with the rectifier, there's a doubler or a tripler in here. And there's probably some sweep tubes over here. This thing draws a lot of power, as you might imagine, so we have dual 5U4 rectifiers, probably paralleled up in one big old power transformer. And there is an eye tube going right through that glass front plate. And I do want to peek under the chassis. I'm going to tip it up this way because it's heavy side with the transformer, but it also has this. So I'm going to set down the camera and gingerly see if I can safely tip this up. If not, I'll try tipping it this way. Actually, both sides are pretty bad to tip it on. This side has a delicate tuning mechanism and dial glass. The other side has the hoop for the CRT, which extends over the edge, and it's also very top heavy if you go this way. So I'm just going to hold it while we peer underneath. I want to look for any hacked up stuff, any rodent activity. I like what I'm seeing so far. There has been some repair, probably not all that long ago, because there are cable ties holding a cap in there. It might just be tacked in parallel. Other than that, I'm not seeing anything other than original stuff. Bumblebee caps, whole bunch of carbon copper resistors, and no chewed up wiring. So it all looks very complicated and there's a lot of work to do, but I don't see any issues whatsoever. That's what you want to see. I took a bunch of reference photos. I do have a copy of the service info. I want to put together an order for parts. The reference photo so I can make sure that what I'm seeing matches the service info, and it also helps you figure out what size some of the original components are. Are they axial or are they radial, and that kind of thing. And I'll get together a parts order. Also notice that the chassis is on shock mounts, rubber shock mounts that are all completely, or very close to completely rotting away. I know they make reproductions for radios. This chassis is a bit heavier than your typical radio chassis, and there's just 4 of them. I'll see what I can come up with. I may just get grommets or something at the local hardware store. I've tried radio ones in the past, like taking Philco radio chassis mounts and using them on Philco TV chassis. They fit, but the elasticity coefficient, I don't know exactly what you call it, but the stiffness of the material under the weight of the TV chassis being so much heavier than the radio, they tend to just mushroom out and the chassis kind of bottoms out. So, but anything would probably be better than this, because these are bottoming out as it is because there's so little material left. Anywho, that just doesn't look too terribly bad, given the large size of the chassis to accommodate all the stuff on top. There's a lot of open space, and I don't see too many bumblebee caps, which are paper caps inside a plastic tube. Sure, there's electrolytics scattered all over the place. You know, one here, and one there, but curiously, some of these cans, they're like mounted on a clip, even though it's a multi-section cap. So you don't have to worry about uncrimping it and unwiring it and all that to replace it. Maybe I can tack in replacement caps nearby. We do have more. These are mounted horizontally under the chassis, so I'm not going to. Why would you restuff these? They're completely under the chassis, so I'm not. Don't need to worry about preserving the appearance. I think there's actually only one multi-section cap that actually goes topside, and that's somewhere down there. Okay, there's more than I thought. Okay, it does have quite a few caps in it. So we have 1, 2, 3. Now these two. And this one may have been replaced. It's been slit open for some reason. But the two ones with the cardboard are insulated from the chassis on phenolic wafers, which means Adapt-A-Cap time. And we'll see what we want to do about that guy when we get to it. Another great thing is this chassis is super clean. I mean, it's dusty, but zero corrosion. Dial string's not even broken. That's all fantastic. Gotten into the habit of putting chassis, at least when I'm working on the carpeting here and doing triage. I made up some plywood slabs with carpet glides underneath so I can move stuff around. I'm also looking to get into a Lazy Susan setup on top of the workbench, because as I've been working on larger and larger chassis or really heavy test equipment, it's really unwieldy, and I need something better. But anyways, let's take a gander at that gorgeous dial glass there. That's the money shot. That would be tragic to have broken. Looks like there's a couple. Maybe that's just dirt. Might be a little bit of paint loss. Oh, I think these gold rings are on the front, although I can't really feel them. But some of them are definitely worn off, or almost completely worn off. That's a drag. I mean, yeah, they must be on the front because it has a 3D effect. Oh, well. Which means I can't just spray this with Windex and wipe it down. I could wipe all that off, so that's going to be a little challenging to clean. Let's see, how's it mounted? There's a rubber block on each end. Some kind of clip to. I think you can flip this down and this pops out. Something like that. And yeah, it works. It's creaky, and I want to clean it and lube it before I mess around with it anymore. I want to snap a dial string, but it is moving. That's a very good thing. I slid the chassis back into the cabinet for the time being and popped the knobs back on. I don't think you guys have seen the knobs before. I had removed them for transport when I brought this set home, and they've been in a little bag ever since. Now, there is one issue, potential issue I'm curious about. This knob has a dot on it. That indicates the mode, right? But I can go counterclockwise to the left of the leftmost mode. And if I go the other way, between AM and phono, it takes... there seems to be a jump, or rather it jumps over AM. It goes basically from FM to phono. So it has the right number of positions, but they don't line up with these marks. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 positions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 modes, but that dot does not line up with them. So I don't know what's going on with that. Maybe the switch has been replaced is what I'm getting at. We shall see. We shall see. So that's going to be it for now. Now here's the thing. I feel like a kid in a candy store because I brought more of my sets in that had been in the garage for a while, and I got some new sets delivered for restoration. So I have a wealth of new projects to choose from. So I'm thinking maybe it's time for me to finally do a little experiment and put a poll up on my channel and ask you, what do you want to see next from my collection? These are all customer sets. Well, not that Emerson, but I have an identical Emerson that is a customer set. The customer sets will get done in due order as they came in. But as far as which of my sets to work on next. We have a number of amazing choices. We have the Stromberg, we have the Magnavox I got not too long ago. We, of course, have my Emerson 571, and we have a few others. So I'm thinking I'll put together half a dozen choices and see what you guys think. But for now, that's going to be it. Hope you enjoyed this look at a very seldom seen Stromberg Carlson TS-16. Thanks for watching.